I had the opportunity to be in Mexico last year to personally nominate Paddy Crumlin for the President of the ITF. And I think yourself that the push that the MUA has made over a number of years has changed the landscape of the International Transport Federation. Rather than being a talking shop and just meeting to say about our problems, were actually going out to organise those people that we thought was unorganisable and taking on the multinationals. Now, I want to give you an example about the British trade union movement, and hopes that some people will take a lesson if you must never ever get complacent in the trade union movement. In 1978, our membership of Britain of the trade union movement was 12.5 million people. That was a density rate of 58% of the entire population of Britain, but more importantly, 92% of people that worked in Britain were covered by a collective agreement. Do you know what it is now? It's down now, the trade union density, to 33% in Great Britain, and the density is now down to 38%. In the private sector of UK, the density of trade union membership is now below 25%. And that's been brought on by a number of things, a number of issues. First of all, that Thatcher and Reagan decided to make war against working men and working women in the axis of evil, to turn around and say there was going to be a new world order. That new world order was basically what they called flexibility, end of red tape, is doing away with every kind of trade union protection. You haven't got to be a genius or walk around with the Financial Times in your pockets to recognise the fact that if you're top dog at the workplace against the employer, when you improve your pay and conditions, it takes the percentage off the employer's profits. And if the bosses are more organised than you, when they reduce your pay, it improves their profits. So it's whoever's top dog at the workplace decides the strength at any given moment in time. And of course, Thatcher brought in 12 lots of anti-trade union legislation. All those 12 lots of anti-trade union legislation meant basically that in Britain, you haven't got the right to go on strike. You've got the right to take strike action, but the union can't be sequestrated if it's through a ballot. But for us to have a strike ballot now in Britain, it means that we have to, first of all, send the matrix system over to the company 7 days in advance, not who the people are, but every single grade that's on the employer's register that we're calling out. Now, if you're in an industry where it's hard to bring in a scab workforce to replace those people, you have some chance. But if you're in a low-trained, skilled industry, all you do by giving the employer 7 days' notice is allow the employer to ring up agencies and scabs to start organising against you for 7 days in advance. And then when you take your strike action, after going through a ballot, you have to give 7 days' notice before you take action again. So 7 days before you even ballot, 14 days to run a ballot, and then 7 days to give notice as well. Why should we have to give notice to the employer? When an employer shuts a firm down in Britain, they don't ballot the workforce to see if the firm just shut down. They just shut it because they understand that what we have got is to have organised power. They must have all kinds of restrictions placed upon us. And of course, what happened was the attack started not just on the trade union movement, but through democracy in local authorities, by taking away the people that was responsible for running municipal powers and municipal authorities and services, by stripping of them and handing them over to the privateers. So where before you had a local authority that was accountable to the people in that local vicinity, it's now handed over to the privateers, which gives them the strength in the boardroom. You see, they're not really bothered about who's MPs in Britain anymore, who's your member of parliament. They're beside the point. They're just a consultancy document. The real people that have the power are the multinational firms that dictate policy to individual governments, that if you don't give us what we want, then we'll pull the plug and move to other parts of the world to do our operations. And of course, the biggest attack was on the Mine Workers Union in 1984 to 85. Mine Workers Union, 84 to 85, I'll say about the mine workers of Britain, they was 20 years advanced of any other trade union, including my union in our country. Not only did they fight for their industry, that they fought for nurses and doctors and the welfare state. And of course, by ripping the miners out, in 1984, there was 220 pits with 220,000 miners operating in Britain. We're now down to 4 pits with less than 3,500 miners. But the insane thing, there's 1,000 years of coal underneath Britain, and they refuse to tap into those resources, but still bring in coal from parts of the world where kids of 7 and 8 years of age are dying and digging coal to bring into our country. And as a result of that, they privatised our industries. Our gas, our water, our electricity is now being privatised. But more incredible about this is the gas industry has been sold to the electricity industry, and the electricity industry has been sold to the water industry. That's the madness of it. This is the God's honest truth. I was home one day, and there was a knock on the door from the London Electricity Board, as they called it now. And he said, "Mr. Crow, I'm flogging gas." I said, "I thought you was from the Electricity Board, mate." He said, "I am, but I can flog gas now. It's called open tariffs. We are free to do anything." I said, "No, thanks, mate. I'll keep me electric with me electric and me gas. Very next night, the gas man come round. He's flogging electric, this bloke. I said, "Well, I just had the same bloke last night, mate, doing the different. Free tariffs now, mate. We can sell what we want." But really what tops it was about a week later when the water board come round. And the water board come round, he said, "I'm from the water board." I said, "It's all right, mate, no leaks here." He said, "I'm flogging electric." I said, "I thought you were from the water board." He said, "Oh, I can flog electric now, free tariffs." Now, when I went to school, I was told that electricity and water didn't mix. But I'll tell you what, it certainly mixes when they're making profits, the bosses, that's for sure. And of course, what we're seeing now is all the wholesale industry sold off. It weren't just about selling the industry off, but it's to break national and collective bargaining. So you've now got regional bargaining takes place rather than national bargaining. And of course, what we're seeing now is the massive assault that's taking place under the disguise of austerity. And I'll tell you about austerity in a moment, how much the British government has now given the bankers. The British government has given the bankers, up until yesterday, 325 billion sterling. That's how much they've given them to the bankers. And the bankers refuse to lend any money. And what the bankers are doing now is that the bankers, and they've got to pay a 1% interest rate back on that. That's what the interest rate back on it. All the bankers are doing is shifting the money to other parts of the world and getting 5 or 6% back. So the actual banks that caused the problem in the first place are actually making money now out of austerity. And have now told every public sector worker in Britain, no pay rise for 2 years, a 3% tax on their pension, and then for the next 2 years after, only a 1% increase for the following 2 years. We've now got unemployment in Great Britain between 16 and 24-year-olds of 25%. That's 1 in 4 kids of 16 to 25 ain't got a job. But of course, it's not about that. This ain't about the bankers. And by the way, I've listened to some of these people on the left who tell me about, that we should pay the money back and we shouldn't pay the money back and we should default. Well, we've all got our own views on that. I actually believe that we should pay the debt back, to be honest with you. If someone nicked your credit card today, went over the mail and ran up a $1,000 bill on your credit card and dropped you a line tomorrow morning and said, "Thanks very much, mate, I've just nicked your credit card, but I've rang the bill up and I want you to pay it back," it wouldn't be right. But I'll tell you what, the people who should pay the money back are not the public sector workers, unemployed and pensioners. It's the bankers that should pay that money back. Every single penny back into the society where it come from. So therefore, brothers and sisters, we are challenging that kind of methodology about what's taking place. And I've got to tell people this, as far as I'm concerned. My union was expelled from the Labour Party. We formed the Labour Party 106 years ago. Our union formed it. A resolution from 2 railway workers in the Farringdon Hall in London moved a resolution because at that time, most of the trade unions in Britain were affiliated to the Liberal Party, not the same Liberal Party as in the Australian Party, but the middle-class Liberal Party. And they recognised 110 years ago that liberalism couldn't change things. They recognised that the trade union movement could only go so far, that in times of industrial prosperity and economic prosperity, you won decent pay and you won decent conditions, but then recognised that in times of recession, all those conditions were back under attack and took them off. So they said they wanted a different kind of society, one called socialism. Some people were scared to say that word now. But I've got to say this. We've got a Labour leader now called Ed Miliband, who says that what he really wants now is responsible capitalism. Well, I don't know what responsible capitalism is, because capitalism is built on inequality in the first place. You can't have capitalism and full employment. You can't have capitalism and no poverty. You can't have capitalism and no mass unemployment, because capitalism actually works on the basis of a society that's unemployed, that they can call upon to undermine those people that are in employment at any given moment in time. So I'll tell you the argument that I argue for, and my union argues for, is that we have got 25 Labour MPs in our group who are the best bunch, we believe, in the British Parliament. And what we've done was this, pretty straightforward. You've come here as delegates this week, and if you went back to your branches or regions and said, thanks for sending me down to Sydney for the convention, but I'm going to take no notice of how you mandate me. You can say what you want, I'm going to do my own thing. Well, you take them back, wouldn't you? You scrub them, get rid of them, and you bring a new delegate in to represent you. Well, I don't understand how some people can keep on saying to me that whatever happens, we must back Labour. Yes, I would like to back Labour. Labour's done tremendous things in Britain. Welfare state in 45, nationalised industries, education and so on. But I'll tell you what, I find it very hard when a Labour government that was in for 13 years started privatising more jobs in the public sector than what the Tories did, kept all the anti-trade union laws in place, and also kept all the laws in place for the destruction of the shipping industry in Britain. And we asked them all a simple question. Do you support the renationalisation of the railways and the end of the destruction of the shipping industry? Do you support repealing all the anti-trade union laws that was brought in by Thatcher and Major? And do you, at the end of the day, accept an underground system that should be publicly and privately owned? Those who said yes, we supported, and those who said no, we didn't. We don't think we should give money to anybody, any MP, that's prepared to go out and take our money on a Monday afternoon and on a Tuesday morning put the boot into us. So we gave money to those MPs that was prepared to support. And there was a different party. There was the Scottish Socialist Party, who had a far more credible programme than what Labour did. And as a result of that, they expelled us from it. Well, I'll tell you what, you know what happened? We had 12 MPs when we was in the Labour Party. We now got 25 when we was expelled. I said to Lenny McCluskey, my mate in Unite, who's got 110 MPs, why don't you get expelled as well, Len? You might have the majority in Parliament if you get round that way. Because it's all right having these people in your pocket if you ain't prepared to bring them out your locker and use them. So therefore, brothers and sisters, what we're seeing now taking place is an attack, nothing to do with austerity. It's about all the gains that was made from 45 right the way up to the mid-70s. You see, people were conned in the 14-18 war, and they was conned on the basis that the war that was taking place really between Britain, Germany and America about our imperialism could be carved out for a few small minority people in each country. When people come back from that war in 1918, they come back to with nothing. No social housing, no education, no welfare state. But in 39 was a different war. 39 wasn't an imperialism war. It was a war against fascism, and quite rightly so, should people go into that war. You know, my old man was in the 8th Army. When he got called up, he refused to go. He said, why should I go? I haven't got a job, I haven't got an ass. Let Hitler come over here. I might get some of these things that I've thought about. And my granddad, being a grenadier major, took him down and put him into the army. And when he came out in 45, only to find out that his brother was shot 3 days after the war ended in Rangoon, after the war ended, when they come back in 45, they was going to have a different society. No more was they frightened of the boss in the workplace anymore. I mean, the boss in the workplace in the 30s said, doff your cap to me, do what you're told, or you ain't going to get a job, or there's plenty on the dole queue. Of course, when they come back and met the same foreman in 45, they've just beaten Hitler. So they weren't worried about some little foreman or ganger telling them what to do. They told them, the employers, what to do. I mean, the 3 to 4 years, that Labour government, which I'm proud what they've done, built 2 million houses for the people to live in. They nationalised rail, coal, water, electricity. May have not been perfect, but it was better than what it was before. They brought in education. They brought in a National Health Service, free from the cradle to the grave at the point of need. Whether you went for the doors of a hospital, whether you was a pauper or a prince, you got the same quality of service. And what this is all about now is dismantling the entire welfare state, the education system. They will tell you that, yes, everyone's got equality in Britain. This Boris Johnson, the Mayor of London, this champion of equality, says that everyone should have access to education. Well, I'll tell you what, he went to Harrow and Eton, where 6 kids are in a classroom with the best possible education that you can ever imagine. You can't tell me in Eton and Harrow it's equality of 6 people in a classroom, when on the other side of London in Hackney, when there's 40 kids in a classroom, to one teacher, if you're lucky, get the same access into life and what the rich and the privileged do at Harrow, Eton and Oxford and all those other universities that they go to. They tell you that it's the right to choose for private hospitals. And I'll tell you my view on private hospitals. I'll shut every single one of the private hospitals down. And I'll tell you the reasons why. Yes, it is your money to decide how you want to use it. But I'll tell you what it's being done for. The National Health Service, it was allowed to operate and take over those private hospitals, could do away with all the waiting lists. The private hospitals are there on purpose, so you can jump the queue. Why is it you should jump the queue? If you're not well in this world, you should have the right to health access to straight away. If you want to see a consultant, why is it the size of your credit card that determines that you can go and see that person concerned? Well, I'll tell you what, brothers and sisters, since I've been 16 years of age, I can never understand the reason why a world that we live in produces enough food to feed people twice all over, but a third of the world still go to bed hungry every night. There's countries in Europe that burn their crops rather than sell them because they're worried about the price it can make to others with the limitation it can provide. And I produced, as far as I'm concerned, the trade unionism that I've pursued over is one of a militant trade unionism. I make no excuses for that. I don't just believe that trade unionists should come to work and talk about the issues at the workplace, but they should talk about society in general. We just listened to a great speech from our South African comrade, but we should recognise the facts as well. It's no good us sitting here in Australia or London or Stockholm or wherever it might come from, purely talking about pay and conditions, when Palestinian people can't even get out their houses in the morning to go to work. And I tell you what we should be arguing for and demanding. It's no good us keep on passing resolutions on boycott and de-investment in Israel. Israel is an apartheid state. If you're an Israeli Jew, you get better treatment than an Israeli Arab. The Israeli state is no more than a colony of America. And we should ask for the Palestinian people to have their own state, their own freedom, and the right to operate in that state the best they can. But brothers and sisters, it boils down to the end of organisation, at the workplace, outside of the workplace, in the community, in the region, in the locality, globally, right across the world, that we've got one problem at the end of the day, 2 classes. Those that seek to make and maintain their profit margins at the expense of us, or us at the expense of the employers. And it only can be done at the end of the day through trade unions standing together. Brothers and sisters, as I said before, my kind of trade unionism may be different from others. But I make no secret about it. Everything that I've done has been on the basis of supporting workers right across the world. I've had the Murdoch newspapers put a bus outside my house to stop me going to work. They've tapped my phone. They put me under surveillance. I got a bit good news last night that James Murdoch, the boy, has just resigned as the chief executive of News International. Of course, it's got nothing to do that the police might be knocking on his house shortly, but he's moved to New York. That might be a reason. But they pursued the News International on behalf of the big business. And the sickening thing about it, it weren't just the Tories that was in the pockets of Murdoch. That New Labour and the Liberals were in the pockets of Murdoch as well. All of them courted Murdoch. And what we should be saying as working people, we should have our own press and our own ways of putting our media attention over to people throughout the world and start getting our point over as working people. Brothers and sisters, meetings like this give us the opportunity to reaffirm our belief, reaffirm our commitment to industrial trade unionism. I hear up in the northwest of Australia that Rio Tinto want to bring a driverless train in to bring iron ore and coal in from parts of Australia. On London Underground, this mayor of London, this lunatic who looks like Boris Karloff out the Mummy, he wants to do the same kind of thing, bring his driverless trains on the Underground. By the way, if we was in a socialist society, I would argue for driverless trains. I'll tell you what I would do. The money we'd save from drivers, we'd give every other worker that works on the railway a shorter working week, more holidays and early retirement on better pensions as a result of it. That's how a proper socialist society could operate. And the money that was on top of that to provide more hospitals and schools and nurses in our social system. But it's not about that, is it? What it's about at the end of the day is to eradicate trade union strength at the workplace and even to increase their profits and strength over workers. You know, one thing what Henry Ford said is when he said to a shop steward, one day I could do away with your job and put a robot in, and the shop steward said to him, yes, you might be able to put a robot in, but the robot won't be able to buy a car. And that's the issue with driverless trains. Make everyone a robot and they won't be able to buy the goods that have been put on the trains in the first thing. So therefore, if these people can't understand how we're going to determine to stop these driverless trains, the only way it can be done for is international solidarity, solidarity in the region concerned, and we've got to make our agenda quite clear that we're not prepared to accept it. So being in the MUA today has given me that little fast shot of penicillin that I should have had in Kuala Lumpur when I weren't well on the way down here. It always gives me that impetus. These meetings reaffirm our faith, our commitment, our principles to industrial trade unionism, to worldwide organisation and solidarity, and more important as far as I'm concerned, a different kind of world and a socialist society. Solidarity forever.
And his crook. He's got an executive meeting on Monday. I mean, this is commitment, isn't it? Executive meeting, he came from executive meeting of his union, he's flown all the way down, he's got glandular fever. He went to the hospital in Kuala Lumpur and they filled him up with fluids and medicine, 15 medicines, so he could come down and address you. That's commitment, that's solidarity, that's Bob Crow. Like I said last night, he's loved by his members. He invited me over to open up his training school up at Doncaster, right in the middle of a mining area that Thatcher reamed out. They're starting to mine a little bit of coal, very, very deep. But that was another city that was destroyed during the Thatcher years, and Bob is one of those people who's determined to bring jobs back and bring back business and bring back opportunities to all of those lost cities the Thatcher government really destroyed through the middle of the UK. When we went to Doncaster, we always get the train. He says, and he takes the time. He came up, they said, it's Bob Crow here. All of the railway, all of the people, all of the workers, all of the employees of the rail, if they hear that Bob Crow's on the train, they all want to meet him. He took the time, no problems at all, went up there, Anne Scargill, Arthur Scargill's lovely wife, beautiful wife and partner, now, well, used to be his partner, who opened it up, and she was the one from the women in the pits. And if you want to, again, learn about the working class struggle and what happened during that mining strike under Thatcher, the women played as important a role as any other. And with Anne, we did the business, went down the Workers' Club, met about 500 workers, shook hands, talking working class, exactly the same, got back on the train, full of piss, like that, as he said, all walked down like that, so we didn't spill any, got back on the train, and there they are lined up on the train at Doncaster. I was Bob Crow here, and took the time to go and shake hands, talk about the latest CBA, talk about the EBA, talk about their futures and reassure them that they're in a union that cares. That's Bob Crow. Thanks for coming down, mate. Wouldn't be the same without you.
Once again, the MUA never defies expectations from me or from people that come out to here and I speak to. The reality is that the MUA is a beacon for the trade union movement throughout the world. Make no bones about that. Thank goodness of new technology now. We'll be able to tell people throughout the world. Imagine what the pioneers of this union would have done 140 years ago, trying to tell people exactly what it meant by industrial trade unionism, about international solidarity and the problems that caused in trying to get breaking of company trade unionism and business trade unionism into the fighting trade union that we've got here in the MUA as the beacon. But now we've got videos and DVDs and iPods. This information now can be relayed right away across the world for those people that unfortunately may have not been able to get here, or the cost they couldn't get here. But one thing's for sure, our job at the end of the day is to raise the standards of everyone throughout the world. It's no good being a trade unionist if you just think about your own little job, or your own little village, or your own little town. Our job at the end of the day is to raise the standards of those people throughout the world. And by raising those standards, we must recognise the fact it's a world that we want. And I say this, and I'll finish by this because there's been enough speeches this week and people have got a lot of journeys to go to. It's simple things we ask for in life. 1, a job. 2, to have decent rates of pay. 3, to have social housing and good housing to live in. 4, a national health service that looks after us from the cradle to the grave. And 5th, to live in dignity and respect in old age. And finally, to have a world that lives in peace. Capitalism can't deliver that. Capitalism cannot give full employment. Capitalism cannot give a full health service. Capitalism is enshrined in social deprivation and collapses that take place through bankruptcies, breakups of families and breaks up of communities. So therefore, brothers and sisters, I think that the MUA conference, when it finishes here in a few minutes' time, should reaffirm its belief what we stand for. We stand for the principles what the MUA stay for, but more importantly, we leave this conference not on the basis of having a fantastic time and recognising the hospitality that we've been shown here, which has been tremendous by the MUA, but our duty now is to go into the fields, into every area of the world. James Connolly, the great legendary socialist leader in Britain, said that our demands are most moderate. We only want the earth. Thank you very much.